This is Mike again, doing some fly tying for Sean West. I'm going to tie a kind of a hackleless caddis fly that I like to fish in Arizona. Again, this is the same dry fly hook. It's a size 12 Daiichi 1110. So I'm just going to wrap on. I'm using a little different thread. This is a Nano silk. I like to use it. It's a strong thread. Lies pretty flat. Fun part about it is it's not real fond of scissors. So you have to have a pretty sharp pair of scissors. So just going to tie on. I'm going to wrap, this is an extra fine gold wire. I'm just going to tie this in. Advance it back, capture it, flatten that thread, and just advance back with that wire. I'm tying it on my side. It doesn't really matter. It's just a habit that I've got into. So then we have some pretty cool golden dyed pheasant tail. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of strands here. This is a big fly, so I'm going to use a fairly decent amount of them. This works well all the way down into some size 20s and 22s. Taking the tips, I'm going to tie the tips in. Got some nice, I don't need touching wraps, but I want to get that tied in pretty well. Right about to there, about 2/3 of the hook shank. Then I'm going to work this just like a pheasant tail. So I'm going to use a rotary feature. Get that up to right about where that thread is. I'm going to undo some of those threads that wrapped when it went. And my right hand's blocking the light. But basically I'm holding it with my right hand and putting 2 wraps on the back side. Then I'm going to put a wrap on the inside and give it a little snug. So then once I get that, trim it, come in, capture that back to there. Now, pheasant tail's not super durable, so I'm just going to counter wrap this wire. I probably could have went with the bigger wire, but this is all I brought with me. So I'm just going to counter wrap this. It'll help strengthen that pheasant tail a little bit. It's not going to add enough weight to where I worry about it sinking the fly. So then popped off a little high, so I'm just going to cut it back with the scissors. So that's a body. It looks a lot like a pheasant tail or a Frenchie. Now I have a plume of CDC. This is a kind of a sparse plume. It's not what I would consider great CDC. I like the color a lot, and for this use, that sparse is just fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tie that tail in. I'm going to put 2 loose wraps. I'm going to tie that to where it comes behind the eye. Then I'm just going to wrap up through it, kind of push that down, capture as many of those as I can, and in just a smidge behind the eye of the hook. So if this is a full eye length from here to the back of the eye, then I'm about a half an eye length behind the eye. Then I'm going to take a pair of my favorite hackle pliers here. I'm going to grab this I'm going to stroke these barbs on this down, and then I'm going to rope it. So I'll hold this up so you can kind of see that. Just ropes. Then I'm just going to build that up. And I'm going to kind of work it forward. One more. It's probably good. I'm going to take this again, 1 wrap, 2 wraps. I'm capturing that stem. I'm going to apply equal pressure on both of these. Put 1 more wrap there. Kind of snug it. And let go of the CDC. Then trim the stem out. It's kind of all buggy, which is fine. All I'm going to do, flatten this Nano silk. Kind of take 2 or 3 wraps to hold that in the, push it kind of back. And then it's good for, we're going to add some hair. Again, hair is always subjective for the amount. This is going to be a little less than half of a pencil width. I'm going to get in here and kind of pop that out. This is deer hair. I don't have any elk with me. Either one works for me. Could use caribou too if you wanted to do it in smaller sizes. Caribou works really well. So what I did is I just blew that hair, and what happens is the stiff hair comes back, and then the underfur will come to the side here. So even though I combed that, there was still some underhair in that. So now I'm just going to take that, put it in the stacker, stack those tips. Just going to make sure I get a nice ramp built for that wing. I'm going to pull it out, tips to my left. Pull that. And you'll look, this isn't great hair. There's some broken tips in there. You can just grab those. And pull them out. Now I'm going to measure this. I want it to be roughly the same length as the shank. So I'm going to put it on with my right where I measured it. I'm going to grab it with my left. And there's a lot of debate on how to do this. This one I tend to trim it before I tie it in. Then I can come in and do a little pinch wrap. Kind of snug it down. 2 snugs. I'm going to support that material, and then I'm going to wrap through that head the whole time, putting some pressure downward, but also getting that wrapped. And what that does is when you put those thread wraps through this deer hair, it helps hold that wing up on top. If I just did the 2 and tied it off, this wing would slide one way or the other. So now, got that done. And you can use any dry fly hook for this. These are just the ones that I had in roughly the right size. A standard Umpqua down-eyed mustad would work. So now I'm just going to whip finish. I like to do a different, a couple of them on this one. Pull it back, snug that thread, trim that. You can move this back, you can pull that head forward if you want. you want to, you can sync it up and trim it a little better. Little CDC, makes it buggy. The pheasant tail has a nice bug look, gives it a good profile, and then just a deer hair wing. It's a good caddis pattern, not too difficult to tie. Can tie it down into small sizes, you know, definitely in the 22, 24s. Not that caddis get that small, but you could probably use it for a blue-winged olive imitation as well with that CDC. So that's my pseudo pheasant tail elk hair caddis variety.